Now, let me say for the first time this morning, good morning and welcome to the koha-US Systems Administration Special Interest Group. We're here to talk about reports and systems administration and system preferences and anything else that lives in the admin module and anything else that comes up. We have no set agenda, just a big open sheet where I'm going to make notes about what we talk about. So, who's got reports or systems preferences or bugs or whatever the heck that they want to talk about?
I have a question,
Yeah.
which is that someone told me that when you have overdues that roll over to lost, there's just one setting for all of your libraries. And that's a true statement.
I believe that is true, yes. In fact, I think I just got an update on a bug asking to change that, probably from you, if you're
No,
asking me about it.
yeah, I haven't put in, I don't know that I have access to put in bugs yet because we're not actually on Koha. I'm just in the preparatory stages.
Well, let's see. Yeah, I was just looking at that. Why was I just
Oh,
looking at that?
maybe somebody put it in on my behalf.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure it's a thing that's come up before, but oh, that's why I'm not seeing it.
Because our libraries range from 5 days to roll over to lost to like 6 weeks to roll over to lost.
Ooh, we have a really antique bug, but let me share my screen. That's the wrong screen. No, there we go. A long overdue PL to be configured by library. Bug 9596. A 4-digit bug means that it's quite old.
Yeah.
But this is why I got an email on it. Somebody just put a patch here.
Oh,
So I don't know this name, Michael Haffen. So not to say that means this patch isn't good, but I've never met this librarian who works at a K through 12 school.
huh. Well, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So right now, yes, that is a system-wide setting. This long overdue cron job has several things it can differ based on, but I don't believe library is one of them. We can look at that.
We actually even go down to like item type.
And here we go, long overdue. So this is the cron job that runs to make that change. And you can, by looking at the cron, see all of the options it offers you.
Okay.
So you can run it for specific patron categories or specific item types or specific lost values, but there's not any way yet to differ that based on library.
That's kind of surprising. I mean, it would have all these different choices, but library wouldn't be one of them.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those areas where we're sort of hitting growing pains as Koha is moving to more larger systems that have that sort of disparity. I suspect like if we had somebody from Click here to talk about their policies, I bet they just keep a real strict hand on all of their members to say this is what it is. It's going to be 30 days for everybody. Deal with it.
So does that mean that there's no interesting workarounds?
I'm not aware of one. Someone asked for closed captioning. I'm going to click the button to make that happen. Okay, I think those are running. Please tell me if they're not. Yeah, I don't know a good workaround. Does anybody? Tossing to the room here. To make long overdue run per library rather than system wide?
No, I'll just say that what you mentioned, Click does is probably what we do.
Yeah.
Our policy's always been like long overdues are 99 days across the board. It's always just been a system-wide setting for us because there's never been the option. I didn't know about that bug. I'm excited to hear about that bug.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if it legitimately goes somewhere. Let me put that in the chat. You could, so Mike said, you said differences by patron type. You could make each library have their own patron type, but that feels like, yeah, like
59 libraries.
that's gonna cause you a whole other end of problems.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I don't feel like it was great news.
Well, but I got more brains than just mine on it, so I appreciate that.
You're welcome, certainly. What other fun things have y'all been getting up to? Has anyone written an amazing report? Has anyone theorized an amazing report and then failed to find all the pieces to make it do the thing that you wanted to do? Okay, I've got a big SQL question for the group then. How do you identify the date on which an item became ready for circulation? Like if you're trying to write a circ report that looks at only the actual circulating lifespan of a book, does anyone have a clever way to determine in the data the date on which that item was actually like ready for someone to check it out? I'm glad Jason has his camera on so I can watch his face as he considers this question.
The only thing I mean, we use an in processing status. So we check the book in as soon as it's out of processing, which does create a cataloging log entry, I think. So that's the only thing I can think of where it would be that date. But I don't know. We don't let things sit in processing too long, so
That's
we've
fair.
never really considered that, I guess.
I opened a notes document. Oh, I lost it.
I can't think of a good way to do that, and I thought about not coming to this meeting, and then I got sidelined getting here, and I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes because I got to go to one of my libraries. And now I'm getting reports that Koha is acting really slow, and I'm not seeing it. But I can't think of a good way to do that because there's just too much variation between libraries for us. Some of our libraries use an in-processing status or shelving location. Some of them don't. Some of them use a cataloging, like that. Some of them use a not for loan status when the things are being processed. Some of them use a shelving location. Some of them use a lost status. There's just too many variables for us, and I can't think of anything in Koha that you do to an item when it's finished with cataloging that's consistent, that before it becomes available for checkouts. So I can't think of a good number for you at all, a good way to focus on that. And just out of curiosity, is anybody else having their library say, hey, we're really slow right now? Because I'm not seeing it here in our office. So
Nothing here, but we're very small. And it's early in the morning.
Everything seems speedy to me here.
Oh, and Mike got snowed out. Mike, I can't remember where you are. Are you Ocean State Libraries? Which is in
Rhode Island.
okay. Christie says if you really wanted to put work into it, you could make a statistical patron to check all items out to once ready for circ and use that to track. That's not a bad workflow option. Like I've been trying to kind of think, is there an easy thing we could do to all of the items as they go forth to the world And the statistical patron checkout's pretty simple. Like that's just a scan on each item. I'd kind of thought about how much of a headache it would create for us to make a processing branch. Just make this the branch where all the acquisition happens, and then we would have to transfer out of that branch to mark the start of the item's life. Mike asked about batch checkout to stat patrons. We don't use the batch checkout feature. I don't know what batch checkout does with a statistical patron. That's a good question. Does anybody use both statistical patrons and batch checkouts?
Yeah, and I got a big pile of books right here that I'm checking in and checking out to see if we've got slowness issues. Give me a second. Let me find a statistical patron.
Jason mentioned the action log, and the action logs definitely would record the moment at which the not for loan in processing status was removed. But they only record all of the values being written into the item at the moment of action. So there's not a great way to say which one of the action logs here is the one on which not for loan became 0. I know there's a bug out there somewhere to make all of the action logs store as a diff to say specifically at this point of change, not for loan was -1 and it became 0. And that would give us a lot of data to play with. Like maniacal fingers.
I get a local use recorded message on everything I just batch checkout to batch checkout for the statistical patron for. So
it seems like that works.
yeah.
It makes sense. Like that is a nice thing for statistical patron. I don't know what word I just said that was not statistical. It was close.
I got to see y'all later. I've got to go to McLeod.
Good luck.
Good morning.
Hello.
I came in late to your discussion about long overdue notices. Was it about trying to get it to be controlled per branch?
When it wasn't notices, it was the charges themselves, the period after which things become long overdue.
Okay, because we've supported a development with Bywater to move the cron into the back end, but that was a year ago and they still haven't gotten started on it. So, but we're hoping that will help us be able to control that, because we have branches that do completely different things. And so we have to do all of our long overdue stuff separately. I don't know if that's completely the same thing.
So how are you doing that separately?
So, because we don't run the long overdue cron. We run a manual report that looks for everything that is over 31 days overdue, and our staff batch update them at that time to mark them as long overdue.
Oh.
And then when you batch update, you can set in the system preferences whether or not you want it to leave the item checked out to the patron too. But that's where it gets billed, is when we run that report manually.
Yeah, for us, that report would need to run, or someone would need to do that on a daily basis.
Yep, we do it once every morning at our library, and the other libraries, they do it whenever they have chosen to do it.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But the good news is, looking at your dev, it does specifically say this would give the ability to set things at the library level. That's a great dev. It will be someday wonderful both to be able to see all these settings and also to have more flexibility in how they get set.
Yeah, it's just when Bywater can get time to work on it.
Yeah. So Juliet, right now, your workflow is basically run a report to tell you which things should be long overdue so somebody can make that batch edit.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and then we have to do a separate report that I think we also do at least once a week where we batch edit anything that was checked out at other branch libraries and mark them as lost in a different way so that we know that they were lost by other libraries and not our patrons. There's a few things that connections that don't quite get in there exactly. Like we send out our billed notices and those tend to go a day after we marked them as lost, but then the ones for the other libraries, they get their notices, but they might not be marked as lost, and so they don't have a fine on their account yet. So you kind of have to play around with it to get it to do what you want it to do.
Sounds messy. Workable, but messy.
Yeah. And we also use UMS to send accounts to collections. And we're doing a report manually on that daily as well and sending new submissions once a week. But the Bywater actually did, Kyle made a plugin for somebody and it works beautifully. And so that just sends a report every day to UMS that we don't have to touch, and we love that. But our library is the only one who does it, so it works, because if everybody else wanted to do something different, then we would have problems.
So, oh dear. So we have,
Oh,
we were not on Koha yet. We're in the transition, but we have different libraries sending to UMS that charge different referral fees. So basically what you're saying is like everybody has to do exactly the same thing.
I think if you use the plugin, it has to be the same for all of the libraries.
Ooh, okay, good to know. Thank you.
I would put a ticket into Bywater and have Kyle look at that and let you know for sure, because I just know that we're the only library in our system that uses it.
Okay.
and if the plugin needs to learn to differ its behavior by branch, that is a way lower bar to teach a plugin to do something like that than to teach Koha as a whole. So that might be something they can like just kind of bash out for you more quickly.
Yeah, he'll go in there and change it in a few days if he has the time, and
Okay.
yeah.
Good to know.
Were you the one that was asking about message B on?
Yes, I am.
We're currently using Patron Point, and we can't use it for our notices because we have separate libraries doing separate notices, and you can't turn off notices just for one branch, which is what we wanted to do. And so I've been wondering about message B. I would love to know if you guys keep it, how it works for you in Bywater or with Koha eventually.
I can't speak obviously to Koha as of yet, but I can tell you from Symphony where we do run it, we just set up a different, a report for every library that we want to have a different message. And then Unique has the template for each of those libraries. So we just set up, for A, B, and C library, send it with this name. And for Unique, that means use this particular template. But yeah, Unique is awesome to work with.
We'll keep it in mind. Because I think we're ending our contract with Patron Point this year at some point.
Chanel, on your message B, when are you using it for SMS text messages?
That is the only thing that we haven't been using it for, because we already had that through Circe Dynix, but we're going to have to move that to either to be message B or to move it to Twilio.
And are you doing two-way messaging? Like if a customer gets, okay.
No.
Things to think about.
Yeah.
Jason put in the chat that there are already issues filed on Bywater's UMS plugin to asking for it to become library specific. Oh, I put issues on this plugin once upon a time. Exciting. Looks like they were put there by Kelly from Bywater, so that's like internal stuff. But it is at least sort of on their radar as of a year ago.
And that might be a bigger ask than some of the other things that he's changed down there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've also been looking at message B and patron point. We're currently sending all of our notices, email and SMS through Koha. And so when you get a bounce notification back through Koha, and it says it's got some kind of wording that says like abuse. Is that the patron marking it as spam or something, or is that the email provider doing something that is saying, you know, this is spam and so it shouldn't go through, or what does that mean?
I don't know about Koha, but for message B, it can be either, because they do have a place where they show you all the patrons that have, you know, quote, requested notices cease, and you can actually change the status and let the notices come on through again or go on through again. And so sometimes it can be because they clicked, because, you know, when you get something that comes from like a mailing list, there's a unsubscribe link at the top that your email program puts in there. So they could have either clicked that, or their provider sniffed it and thinks it's spam, and so just automatically. We are continually having a problem with one patron who really wants to get her notices, but her email provider is just perpetually thinking we're spam.
Do you know which provider it is?
Well, it's not happening across the board. Like all the emails that we send to their users this doesn't happen. I want to say it's Hotmail, but I don't remember 100%. It's just this particular user, you know, so we're working with Unique because from our perspective, notices, we're doing business with these people. When they sign up for a library card, they agree to do business with us. So notices are part of doing that business. So from our perspective, they should not be able to block notices. Now, if we were to use message B for a mailing, for like, you know, a newsletter, then yes, of course, people should be able to opt out of that.
While we are talking about messages, does anyone do a digest version of phone notices on holds? Anyone?
You said of phone notices?
Yeah.
Are you doing like a robocall of some sort?
Through Twilio, or yes, Twilio. It's a generic you have holds for pickup message, and I think we're probably going to have to revisit the digest version of that, and I didn't know if anyone else had run into that.
No, we haven't taken the plunge on any phone messages. We have a handful of patrons who want to get called for things, but they want to get called by a human. Is it doing
I think, sorry, Christopher Brandon did a presentation on this in Lawrence, so I'll put that link in the chat. He had a big crazy calling tree thing set up through Twilio, so there might be some information in there.
Christie, is it doing something weird to your digested hold notices?
I'll have to dig into it a little bit more, but what it might be doing is, even though it's a generic message, if it's a digest, I think it's repeating the generic message for each item, and that's not ideal.
No, kind of funny, but probably not to the patron.
Yeah, we'll be switching to Shoutbomb's Voice for Library soon, and basically what he'll do is he grabs all the notices, he digests them before spitting it back out to the patron. So it'll be even before like the patron gets the notice, everything's kind of like compiled, you know. Same with overdues.
Anybody else being kept up nights by a notices question? Has anyone changed a system preference and observed interesting behavior following the change? Could be a fun little exercise for this group. Everybody change one system preference before next meeting. We'll discuss what happened.
I'm curious about a specific system preference. The new option to leave long overdue, going back to long overdues, items checked out to the patron until you do the batch edit before removing them from deleting the titles. Has anyone tried that out? Because it's so confusing when someone comes in and says, do I have anything checked out? And well, they do, it's long overdue and it's a bill, but it's actually not checked out anymore. And we'd like to switch that, but I'm a little afraid to dive in without some way to test it or letting someone else go first.
Mike says he's been afraid to try batch deleting the long overdue lost items. That's fair. I think that's kind of where we're at. Like, things go long overdue. We leave them on the patron's account because it's easier to see them there.
Right. But
And
with the
I
new,
think they kind of stay there forever.
well, we were on Symphony for 30 years before we moved, and we had stuff from 1991. And we're only now cleaning that up because it was silly. And so, you know, I'm still trying to analyze what's the reasonable amount of time. And we're kind of thinking you get out of bankruptcy after 7 years. So, you know,
That actually is exactly what we do now is after 7 years, like Unique can't continue to pester the patron after 7 years. So we have a report set up that forgives all of those bills at 7 years, and then of course lets us remove items and users.
Yeah, and well, we're working with Bywater to start writing off old bills from seven or more years ago that we brought over from Symphony, and again back to 1991. But the other side, but we would like to just leave things checked out because it's just more clear that yes, they have it. It hasn't come back. It hasn't been checked in. So just leave it checked out to them. And I'm just a little afraid to try it with it's such a big shift and it's a new thing that I'm a little nervous. It just makes more sense though to do it that way. And as in the process of deleting them, you say, okay, check them in first and now delete them.
I think the only concern I have with trying the batch check-in and then deleting the items is making sure we can identify what branch that replacement charge belonged to. Because if patrons are paying online or they're paying in person, we do like for the funds that are collected in person, we do like a yearly reconciliation because the replacement costs go back to the owning library. Overdues for whoever's still charging overdue fines, that library just keeps, even if it's not their books. But like the online payments, we do disbursements, so we need to know whose item that was.
Well, I'm fortunate there that, we have 19 buildings, but it's one library. So everybody plays by the rules that get set at headquarters and everybody, and the money is the county's anyway. So it's not really the library's money in the first place. It's the county's and it all flows to them. So
I might have a silly question regarding this because I'm like, ooh, because we've just been keeping their debts on them forever.
Right.
So when you go to waive these, do you notify the patron at all or just
Well,
go
that's why
straight?
we're still working that out. And there is
Okay.
a cron for writing off old unpaid fines and bills. But we're still working back and forth with Bywater, and I don't think we'll notify them. I think we'll just do it
It
and
goes, yeah.
say goodbye. And then
Yeah.
the other side is I'm a little, the cron that, or the cleanup database cron, I think it is, that will delete your old paid bills. It calculates from the date the bill was created rather than the date the bill was paid, which seems like the wrong date to me. I mean, if just, if the bill was created 6 years ago and they paid it yesterday, and I say delete bills that are more than 3 years old that are fully paid, it's gone tomorrow. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's kind of a hang up on how do we clean up the old bills that they're zeroed out. We don't need to worry about them anymore. But that could be old Symphony thinking, in that, does it matter that we have this record of an old paid bill forever? I don't know. It did in Symphony. It could really screw things up if you kept your old bills forever, but I don't know. In Koha, your database tables just grow and grow and grow.
We don't notify our patrons when we ditch those bills, but typically those patrons have been barred for years already.
Yes.
I mean, because our threshold is $10. So you lose one big book, that typically puts you over the limit.
Sally, is there a specific thing you're worried about going wrong as you
Which-
make this change?
I don't, it's just that it's the unknown. I don't have a specific concern. It's just like, I don't know what to expect. So I don't know what might go wrong. And it's just bite the bullet and go for it, or or wait for someone else to do it. And we have a test server in-house that we could try to run some tests on, but it just seems like it's such a small scale to run tests that it's a difference in practice. I think that even testing it might not turn up everything that we might need to worry about. Just waiting for someone else to go first.
Yeah, I can say I've gone through this process with a test item and it worked okay. But for what that's worth.
Right. I did play around with, manually moving something to lost long overdue, and I can't remember what I did, or on the test server, and changed the setting and it seemed to be okay. But again, it was 1 or 2 items. It's just not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, my worry here is always accidentally giving patrons credits.
Right. I mean,
And
it
it
says
shouldn't do that.
it says it doesn't affect the bills any, but really? I mean, that's what needs to happen. It says that's what happened, but
I don't know how to get you around the moment where you have to just like clench all the muscles in your
do it.
body and
Yeah.
click the button.
Yeah. And after spending a few hours yesterday trying to clean up some credits that appeared, I don't really want to do that for hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a system preference or maybe even a bug that's like in development to, like, if a patron record is open for like 30 seconds without any activity, to kind of like close it and go back to just when you're ready to scan another patron card. I see there's like a logout system preference, but that appears to me to be like the actual staff user to log out of Koha.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
And it is for everybody, and it's about when it says activity, it means like page load. So if you want to ever make your catalogers really, really unhappy, set it to like 30 seconds and get them logged out while they're making edits.
We found a way around that one. We use single sign-on for some staff, like the catalogers and me and a few other people have access to a single sign-on, and it just keeps signing in all day. And it's attached to our Microsoft Azure Active Directory, but our circ staff don't have permission to use it. So I log in and I stay logged in all day. The catalogers stay logged in all day. Circulation staff, if they don't start behaving themselves, maybe down to 30 seconds any day now, but you know, right now they get half an hour.
Jason put some jQuery in the chat.
Yeah, I showed this off at another meeting, but I think I have it set up on my test server so we don't have to sit here for 3 minutes to watch it do its thing.
Right.
So let me pull up a Patron. So I've just got this like little script I wrote. Screen 3. So when it's setting idle for I made some adjustments to the buttons so they look a little different, but I'm using these buttons as my sort of focus area. After a certain period of time, I made the button start glowing red, and then after a little bit more time, it starts a countdown and says, "Hey, this is gonna auto exit in so many seconds." And then after that expires, it exits the account, so it takes you over to this. Then I added an extra link to go back so that people don't get frustrated. I do have the last Patreon link up there still, but these two things do the same thing.
That's awesome.
So
Renee, what do you think?
The jQuery, sorry.
That is awesome. That's exactly what we need.
So
And I like the
jQuery
way he renamed the exit and print.
buttons.
Also, yeah, the buttons.
You're gonna put it on the wiki?
So the jQuery on the wiki is just that countdown timer. It doesn't have all the extra modifications, but because it was like messy. And it's also, if you look at the jQuery, I have a comment in there about like, I think something not being quite ideal. Because I'm leveraging the circ messages, the presence of circ messages on the screen to determine if it's on the right page or not. So it's a little iffy, but it works for the most part. But yeah, I can expand on that.
So what on the screen would like kind of like reset the counter, like actually like just checking out, or because when you check out, it refreshes the page.
Yeah.
Page anyway, so the count is already refreshing.
Yeah,
and
anytime the page refreshes.
Okay. Huh.
That's really cool. I wanted sort of a Mission Impossible fuse maybe on the screen and then an explosion.
Maybe pull that off.
I say these things knowing that
built in.
There's seem a decent odds that you will show up at some future meeting with an explosion animation.
Thank you, Jason, for that.
Sure.
Barbara put a bug. Bug 36029, add the ability to backdate a transaction in POS. Oh, that sounds hard.
We've been using POS since about August, and it's been working okay for us. But what we're finding is that we sell a lot of things. We sell stuff for the Friends as a pass-through for the foundation. So like all kinds of stuff come through our front desk. So we've got tons of account codes. And so our problem usually happens with a credit card transaction, and staff will run the transaction, but they'll fail to put it in the POS in Koha because some other needy patron came up and needed something, and they take them off and they just never remember to go back and put it in. So when staff are trying to reconcile the drawer in the morning, they'll find missed transactions. And so they need to put them in, but there's no way to manipulate the date to show when the transaction actually occurred. And then as I was thinking through this, it's not only really just the date, because sometimes staff are choosing the wrong account. So you find that something that should have gone to our friends group was actually recorded as a library account. So it's really actually even larger than just backdating, but we're just wanting some extra mechanism that what's in the POS reflects actually what happened. So I've got a report that I've worked for a long time on, and it's got a time in it. So we're actually running it as our 24-hour period is 9 o'clock in the morning to 8:59 of the next day, hoping that all of our transactions that we had to make corrections happen before 9 o'clock, and so that the report would capture them on the right day. But we'd actually like a way to, put things in the right day. I don't know if anybody else that's using POS encounters those issues, but anyway.
Barbara, I just had a memory of when I worked at the golf course and we had a POS system, and this would happen to us where we had to fix something the next day. And I don't know if this would work on Koha. This is where my ignorance is going to come in, because it's a cloud-based system, and back then it was a software on the computer. But in order to make this happen, we would change the time actually on the computer and make it go back a day. And then that tricked the software that we were back a day. Would that work with Koha?
I have no idea. Does anybody know if?
I would bet it would still record server time.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm game for anything that tricks Koha into doing something stupid. So like, but yeah, I don't think it will work.
all right.
Sometimes I start to get concerned about the frequency with which in a meeting like this, my response is, well, I just don't care that much about like data accuracy. Like, so we put some book sale books on the wrong day. It's fine.
Problem is our finance department cares.
Yeah, that makes sense. Should find out who cares here.
Yeah, and
Bake
if it
some
was
cookies.
cash or whatever, it wouldn't be a problem, but having a credit slip that has the
Yeah.
different day. We've run into it a little bit, Barbara, but I think that our finance department and our business office have been able to communicate between each other to work around it, but it would be nice if we had this option.
It would be nice also, because this isn't an option, we've changed the way we do our deposits. So one person starts the deposit at night and just checks credit card sales and makes sure that the credit card sales are accurate before leaving that day. And then there's another person in the morning who will do the deposit, and they're the ones who actually prepare it for finance. But we go into it knowing that at least all the credit cards are right, because we can fix cash the next day, but you can't fix card the next day. So instead, we changed the process of how we do the deposit instead of changing Koha.
So I asked this question at the circ SIG last week, and just want to ask it here just in case there are people that work in circ, or and there might be different people here. We've noticed since going on upgrading to 2305 that if a patron has like an overdue restriction, and we click the button temporarily override, you get the box where you can start checking out items, and it doesn't happen consistently, but like after you scan a couple of items, the screen will switch back to being restricted, and we'd have to click the button again. And Renee and I were working together at one of our libraries on Sunday, and I'm like, it just keeps going back. And then of course she walks over and it doesn't do it when she's looking at it. But it's just been a little, and I thought I was just going crazy when I first experienced this, and then other libraries started reporting to us this happening. So it's not, I don't think
it's not consistent at all, because on Sunday
Yeah.
when we worked together, I had someone who checked out 7 or 8 items and they had a restriction and it never gave that problem either. So
and unfortunately we don't have like enough data on, like, is it the type of items, is it when the restriction happened, to, you know, like kind of find a common, you know, a consistency to it. Has anyone else been experienced that? Not that you know.
I would have sworn that you always had to click override for every checkout, because that's what it does when you're overriding for other reasons. I'll put a bug for that in the chat. But like if your patron is breaking the too many checkouts limit, you have to say override on every single item you give them. So I'm pleasantly surprised that restrictions are a little bit better than that.
sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, I have no idea what that temporary override, like how it remembers that, if that's like a session cookie or I don't know.
Yeah, it would just be for like that one patron in that session. You know, they had maybe like just received the overdue notice that restricted them like the day before. The books are in the bin. You know, I'm not gonna first go check them all in before checking out, you know, because you know they're in good faith, you know, return the items. And so like usually, and we just click the button, gives us the box to check out, and then close them to go on their way. But there's just sometimes after a couple of checkouts, the screen switches back to being restricted. Yeah, I was like, well, you know, maybe I can like Windows snipping tool and do like a screen recording as this is happening, you know, whenever I'm there, and like actually have a patron that's restricted. So let me start this recording. But our PCs over there are Windows 10 and not 11, which I can't do their screen recording.
I'm trying to think what if there are checkouts that would force that page to fully reload. Normally when you're checking stuff out, it's just sort of adding to the page, not really reloading it. And I can't think of like a type of checkout that would actually force that reload.
Is
like
this on the self checks or checking out at the desk?
At the desk with Koha, like staff interface. We don't use the Koha self checkout.
Okay. This isn't a solution to your problem, but it's a workaround. What we do when we have something like that happens is we click every item that's overdue, and we just extend the due date to another day, and then that'll allow the checkout for that day.
Yep. Okay.
And that's easier than walking to the back, you know. And then when they get checked in, it solves the problem anyway. Or there's times where a patron didn't know they had an overdue, but we'll allow them. Well, when can you bring them back? Tomorrow. Okay, I'll change the expiration date to tomorrow, so it'll be overdue again tomorrow. Return it. Blah blah blah. Does it make sense as like a workaround?
All right.
No.
Thanks, guys.
The other thing on that I wonder is like, is it hitting other things that need overridden? So like you've overridden the restriction, but then is the next thing that pops up actually a too many renewals override or a too many checkouts override or something.
We don't really have too many item, like, we don't really restrict the number of items, like per item type, that much at all, especially not at the library that Renee and I work at, on the weekends. I got it now, I don't forget who said it, whatever, the other thing that makes a page reload, kind of like a material specified message.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Now I gotta kind of pay more attention to those.
Oh, Mike,
I
you'll
just-
have to watch the screen.
So I was
Oh,
just playing on
that's-
my test server and I had a restricted patron and I checked out something that had a material specified note and something else that was like checked out to another patron, and it saved the restriction override between all of those. So wasn't able to duplicate it trying those.
Oh, okay.
well, this sounds like a really frustrating afternoon. Good luck, Mike. We're shuffling into the final 10 minutes of our hour together. And begin to make peace with the fact that this meeting, like all meetings, must end. Does anyone have any last questions?
I don't have a question, but we did have a weird thing, and I think it's happened to us twice that we've identified. We have a lot of books that transfer all over the county, and someone called last Friday and said, "Hey, this thing," and we use Aspen for our discovery. According to Aspen, this is on our shelf at Carnes, and it wasn't. It was actually on the hold shelf at Bearden Branch. And so I started digging in and what's going on and found that Koha was giving 3 different pieces of information about where that book was at the same time, depending on which interface you were looking at. So the API had told Aspen that it was owned by Carnes, but on the shelf at Bearden, but because we have it set to display the owning library, it said it was on the shelf at Carnes. So holding library Bearden, owning library Carnes, which was correct, but not on shelf. And then if you look at the normal view, that was the correct information. It said it was on the shelf for the patron, which when we called Bearden, they said, yep, we've got it for that patron. And then there was a third line that said it was in transit for the patron when you look at the holds page. And so when I looked through the action logs, I could see that there was a check-in on the item at a third branch in between when it supposedly was sent, after it actually arrived at Bearden to be put on the hold shelf. So there's this weird series of events, and that just 3 pieces of information, 3 different views, only one of them was right. And I don't know how often that's happening, because you kind of need someone to go to the branch to look for something that they think is on the shelf because Aspen said it was, but it isn't. And so whatever's going on there might be lurking on your systems too, but good luck figuring it out. Bywater hasn't actually responded to that ticket yet, because, and I don't know how you set up the situation to make it happen, but hopefully someone can track down what it is. Something about the transits got out of whack. There was no transit back from that weird check-in at the third branch. There was no transit back to the place it was supposed to be. And the waiting date didn't change. So I don't know. It's just a weird set of events.
Yeah, that's messed up. That's my
Messed
deep
up
insight.
with, yeah. But I had fun sorting, trying to trace it. It's like solving a Sudoku puzzle.
Yeah.
Figuring out, okay, this and then that happens, and then, well, that can't be true, but this is true. So I was having fun just sort of wading through the tables and logs, which is a weird thing to have fun doing, but it works for me on a Friday afternoon.
Well, you hit a point where you feel like a private detective.
Exactly. I have a mystery to solve. I got to dig in. Yeah.
We've had some weird things where like something's available, but also checked out to the patron or on hold for the patron. like that same item and still waiting, like checked out and waiting for them.
There is a bug on that one. I can't remember what it is though. I think I marked it. Let me see if I bookmarked that one.
We've also had some weird things where, and can't reproduce it. An item will show up in the transfers to receive screen going from one library to another, whether it's on hold or not. And it's repeated like multiple times, like 20 times. And sometimes, and that screen will like kind of cap the number of times it was like repeating. But if you actually look in the branch transfers table, 300 entries for that same thing.
We have something with that on the Lightning Thief. I don't know. There's like a ton of entries and I don't know how to clear them out or what. It's weird.
Like I send the examples to Bywater, and they said there's like, it's possible there could have been like some thing with the browser that kept sending the same thing on like rapid fire, but they really can't get to the bottom of it, and they just suggested we click all the cancel transfers for all the repeated ones. But that's 20 of them. It takes forever for that page to load.
Mm-hmm.
And then who knows like how many more there are like lingering in that table.
We don't use our table, so when I found it, I just ignored it.
Yeah, we call these things cohodities. So one of our circ people at one of our branches coined that term.
We've made kind of a big pile of weird issues this morning. That's good. We've all got a lot of things to talk about, think about. Chanel, I saw you had an email to the Bywater partners list about POS systems. We touched briefly on POS systems. Just to be clear, from your email, I wasn't sure if you expected Koha to be talking to a cash register. It doesn't know how to do that.
Okay, I'm a POS newbie, so I was told to explore this issue because we have libraries wanting to get into this. So I don't even really know what I should be asking. I'm just trying to find a opening to start research on. And like, I know nothing about POS systems.
Koha's POS system gives you a place to click and say, like, I sold 3 books at $0.25 a piece. I took in 75 cents.
Okay.
And it will track how much money it thinks you have in a cash drawer or a cash register, but it's not at any point like actually communicating to that cash register. And it's not processing any credit card sales. It's like its own little siloed register.
So that's the same as how libraries function now. They have one of those little dinky cash registers that they put in the money, and then they go to the ILS and they put in, I just took $5 for this thing. Okay.
Yeah, which is easy, but not like fully featured.
Yeah, not integrated in any way.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Sure.
We briefly looked at a product from TBS, and I don't even remember what it was called, and we were planning on going with it. And it was going to be integrated. And the holdup was it used Verifone, I guess, for the credit card stuff. And I don't know, there was something where we never could get that in place, and it just finally became, okay, this is not going to happen, apparently. And so we gave up on that, and that's when we went back and said, we're going to have to make Koha's POS work for us, and it's just not going to be a connected, integrated thing.
Okay.
Barbara, how are your reports with the POS? Because when I was playing around with it, I was either confused or they just weren't giving me good information. I need like a transaction log of what was sold per item, be it connected to a patron's account or not. Is that a possibility?
We have multiple reports. They kind of started with some stuff Juliet was able to share with me because we weren't sure how to get what we wanted either. And they're using a combination of a daily transactions report to just make sure they're getting everything correct and whether it came in as cash or credit. And sometimes they will take a check for different things.
Yeah.
Then we have a monthly report that groups things by, was this money that's intended for the library / city compared to the Friends or the foundation, because we have to know how much money we took through the register, particularly for the Friends. And then we have to request a check be cut to the Friends. And that one is the one that's been difficult with the dates where things have gotten missed and the dates are wrong. And it's a report that's got like, I don't know, 250 lines in it or something of SQL because we had to group different things together. I can share it with you and you can just kind of see how it looks and what it does.
Okay, cool. Thank you. But yeah, we do the same exact thing with our Friends.
Yeah, and that data absolutely exists. I'm not surprised if the like built-in cash register statistics wizard, I think it's pretty buggy right now.
Okay. Thank you all.
Certainly. All right, it is 11:02. We've already lost some people. I think we've talked all the fun things we can talk about. Thank you all for your time and your attention. We'll see you in a month. Be well. Library good.